I was born in Greece, but grew up mostly in Holland. So the time before my big accident, I was living in Amsterdam, and I was an art student, very happily going to art college, and already traveling a lot. I've been traveling the world since I was about 19, and so living a very full and happy life, having many experiences and being very open-minded. Yes, so it happened during my time in art college in Amsterdam, on a very famous art school, international art college called the Rietveld Academy. And I was on my bicycle on a very beautiful Friday spring morning in the end of April. And I had a sense of elation, not only because it was one of those very rare, beautiful spring mornings with lots of sunshine, and I was like biking, and the city looked so beautiful. And it was also 3 days before the big national festivity, the national holiday in Holland, which was called Queen's Day. Now it's King's Day, but then we had a Queen Beatrix, and that was always to celebrate her birthday. And that was like a 24-hour, open air bonanza with live music and lots of booze and bands and like amazing open air festivities throughout all the big cities in Holland. And so there was this anticipation building up to that day and all the festivities that I was going to attend. And so I'm biking, and I get to the center of town, and there is a big crossroads, and it's by a canal. And I stopped for a red light. And as I'm waiting for the red light, a big vehicle pulled up beside me on the left-hand side. And as the light turned to green, this big vehicle, this truck, started steering quite quickly to the right. And so I got on the bike, I started pedaling, and I was literally pushed to the curb. And I remember as it passed me very, very closely, I already got a little bit of a shock, a fright, and I sort of looked up to the cabin, shouting something just like, "Hey, watch out," type thing. And then everything just kind of went very fast. And as it passed me and pushed me even deeper to the right, and I was actually going to go straight. He had sort of theoretically had to give me right of way. And then the next thing is that I feel this very big sort of thud from behind. And then everything went black. So the next thing I remember, where I awoke into some kind of consciousness, was spiraling out of my body. And at some point, I sort of hovered over the scene. And the first thing I'm aware of is that I have 360 degrees peripheral vision, which was amazing. So I recall being in that state of wonder, just like, wow, what is this? This is amazing. Seeing and literally looking out over the whole city or of Amsterdam and being in that sort of suspended state. And it was just really sort of awe-inspiring, really quite like a spiritual experience, that expanded consciousness in all directions. And I also recall that I felt no pain. I had very little emotion. And then it took a little while for me to sort of figure out what had happened. So as I started to sort of look down, and I started to sort of see the scene, and I saw my body, and I saw a black and white pedestrian crossing and I saw blood trickling between my legs, and that I kind of noticed that that my legs were sort of very strange, cradled around the frame of the bike. And it started to dawn on me, like, oh, that looks strange. That looks odd. Something's not right here. So that takes a little moment of putting all these elements together. And I also remember that it was like everything had come to a standstill. It was like time was frozen, like a freeze frame. And like everything had sort of slowed down to that one sort of, in like non-moving moment. Like you were somehow suspended out of time, and nothing was moving. And I zoomed in on the scene below me. And as it went on, I started to realize what had happened. And I thought, okay, this really doesn't look good. I realized that something had hit me and that I was outside of my body, looking down at myself. And then I started to feel some emotions. And I thought, wow. And then really at some point I thought, but my body is dead. I am dead. And in that moment, it was like things started moving again. No, sorry. Then first what I saw was a man. I saw people walking towards me. It happened just after a bridge. And I saw people from like 3 directions walking towards me and what had happened. And the more I sort of kept that connection with my body, I was feeling like they were like encroaching on my space. And I felt like, why are these people all running and coming towards me? Like, but I'm dying. Like, can't they just give me some air, give me some space? And really, like, I think I even thought, like, can't they just leave me alone to die? And then I saw a man coming from over the bridge. And he started and he was running. I saw it from above. And he started sort of managing the crowds or the people. And then I saw him sitting down. He squatted next to my body. He sort of crouched down next to me. And what I saw from the distance above was that he pulled something out of his pocket, and it was white. And later I learned that it was a white handkerchief. And I saw him sort of doing something with my head, with my face, but making sure that they were not moving my body. And basically, this man saved my life, because the impact of the truck, of the back wheels, the double wheels of this truck driving over my body, had caused my lungs and my stomach and all to collapse, and caused tremendous also organ damage. And so I nearly choked on the vomit, on the bile. So he had wiped my mouth and wiped my face and basically saved my life. And so as I'm watching that, and all of this obviously went very fast, it can not have lasted more than a few minutes. But to me, in that sort of freeze frame, 25 meters above, it looked like a very long time. And then it was like slowly things started to move. When I really understood and started to feel the seriousness of the situation and sort of what had happened to me, I thought, okay, it's kind of sad and I'm still really quite young, but I thought it's okay, I can let go. And so it felt like it was like I severed the last remaining connection to my body. It was like there was this little string, like I had been like a kite on a string connected to that body. And then in that moment, I let go. And then everything started to move very quickly. And I felt that I was shooting through the air away from the earth at great velocity, at great speed. And I sort of remember feeling like I was going through the clouds, just through, into the stratosphere. And then everything went to black. And I realized later, now I know that that was the void, which is where the soul goes in between the dimensions. And so the first recollection I have, like coming back to some consciousness, was me floating in the cosmos, in the universe. And that was a very pleasant sensation. So it was like I already knew that I had no body, that I had no physical body, and also that you're in this sort of awareness that actually you are not a person anymore. You have no name, kind of no identity. You're just awareness. And I found that extremely liberating. There was a sense of unlimited freedom that you're experiencing, your soul, your essence is experiencing that. So my consciousness is just floating amongst the stars. And I noticed that space, that the cosmos is not dark, as in black. It's actually a sort of velvety blue. It's a dark blue, but it's not black. And I remember sort of going with that experience for a while and finding that also quite soothing. And thinking, I think I remember this. I think I've been here before. Maybe like I've done this before. I've floated amongst the stars before. So it was a sort of feeling of feeling safe, maybe. Then I sort of recall being pulled to a golden infinity sign. And it was quite large, and it was like this golden infinity sign was like, it was a living current, like it was alive. It was electrifying because I could see the current sort of light, of energy pulsating through it. And it was like it magnetized me to it. I was magnetically attracted to this form, to this infinity sign. And I remember I was again sort of suspended above it. And later, when I started to understand my experience better, it felt like it was a kind of a download. It was an energetic upgrade. Something was being done to my spirit, to my soul. And it felt very energizing, very electrifying. Then everything went black again. And when I re-emerged from that moment in the void, I was shown a kind of life review. So I want to point out also that I did not go through a tunnel. At least I have no recollection. I don't remember that. I didn't go to a light. Yeah. So in that sense, my experience differs from many other experiences of people having NDEs. So I did have a sort of life review. So when I re-emerged from the void, from that black dimension, I remember that I was being shown certain scenes from my life, from the life that I had just departed. And it wasn't like everything was passing very quickly, but it was a highlighting of certain things that had happened in my life so far. And one of the scenes that was being sort of brought to life was when I must have been around 13, 14 years old. And I had a very loud argument with my mom. And what made it so special was that I was being shown what my argument, what my words, what my anger was actually doing to my mother. Because it was like I was being pulled into her body, into her awareness, and I was receiving all of that anger. So everything that I had said to my mother and projected, I was now experiencing myself. And it was very profound, and it was very emotional. It made me very sad, because I thought, wow, I was a very angry teenager, and I was very angry with my mom. And it was very deep to experience, the impact of your own actions. And I also recall that there was a sort of a forgiveness, that it was made clear that there was a balance. Yeah. So that it wasn't like she was still angry with me, or, it was an observation. It was something for me to integrate, to see, like, those are the direct repercussions of your actions, and this is how it feels, and you may want to think about that again, or something like that. A very, like, a wise lesson. And then some other scenes sort of came into my awareness, also scenes from my very, very early childhood in Greece, like before I was 3 or even 2 years old, that you, let's say, like, you have no direct memory of. So that was very, very special, very unique. Then again, that went on for a while, and then everything went back to black. The next dimension, the next sense of awakening into consciousness after that was into what I call the blue zone. It was a dimension, a realm that seemed to be sort of infinite, like with no limits. And it was in this very deep, a blue that was like it was alive, an electric blue. And what was very special about that dimension, or that place, was that it had a sort of pulse. It had a sonic boom. So it was like there was this sort of heartbeat, and it was a very deep, like almost like a bass tone, this boom, boom. And it was this pulsation in this blue space. And that felt very zen, very soothing, very quiet, very, very limitless. And again, so it's just you are obviously completely aware that you have no physicality, that also in that state, you have no memories, there's no identity. There's just that sort of beingness that is observing its experience. Yeah, that's probably the best way of describing it. And that again went on for a while, and I remember sort of breathing or being alive with that pulsation of that sort of sonic boom, almost like a cosmic heartbeat, if you will. That also then ended in my experience. And I will come back to this because apparently this played a very important role in my rebirth, as I call it. I went back to black in my memory. And then for the last time when I reawoke into consciousness, it was into what I now call source energy, into the arms of God or the divine. And that was single-handedly the most overwhelmingly beautiful experience I've ever had. And I think that a human can ever have, because you go to a place where there's only light. So I recall it as a sort of white golden light, and your awareness is that you are one with everything. You are that light, and that light is everything. So you are everything, and you are in this completely timeless limitlessness, vibration of love, unconditional love. It's like a heavenly love. And it felt like home. It felt like really like I remembered that I had come from there, that my soul had come from there, and that I had returned home to my cosmic, to your cosmic home. And I also feel that actually words, that language actually is unable to fully do that justice. I feel that you can only just kind of describe the outline, the sort of fringes of it, because what that really feels like is totally beyond, it's beyond words, beyond language, it's beyond any 3D experience, really. So that was the most profound experience of love and of oneness, of being one with everything. And then there was that voice, and that voice said, "You can't stay. You have to go back." And then this was all taking place sort of telepathically. And I remember that a part of my soul sort of bargained with this voice. It bargained with that authority, that heavenly authority, or with God, if you will. And I pleaded, I bargained. I was like, no, please let me stay. This, I'm home. I'm one. I am so deeply happy. This is where I need to be. Let me be. Let me stay. And of course, this is all done telepathically. There's no sound. And of course, these communications are direct. And it wasn't like there was any kind of dialogue. I don't recall that this voice or this authority sort of, entered into this discussion, and it sort of just listened to me pleading, and then it just repeated what it had said, and it said, "No, you can't stay. You're going back." And the next thing was that I woke up in an intensive care unit on a ventilator machine, in a little room by myself. And that's sort of my story of my NDE.
Wow, that is absolutely incredible. The way you describe it, I feel like I just want to go there too.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And you know what is surprising is that it does feel like home. And even though I don't have an NDE, I do have a remembrance, which
Wow.
is which I think everybody feels. I think that's what a lot of people yearn for, and they don't know what that quite is. I just wanted to ask, while you were out there, if you are consciousness, were you aware that there was other consciousness around you? Or did you feel like you're separate, or do you feel like you're all part of the consciousness?
Yes, for the most part, especially, I think the moment I was really not just out of my body, but I had sort of crossed the line into the astral, into, the universal field of consciousness, or whatever name you want to give it. Yeah, there was an overriding sense of not being separate, the opposite of being totally connected to all things and to everything and everyone. I also actually recall that the moment, I forgot to mention that while at some point in the life review, there was an awareness, and there was this big aha moment that I had lived many lifetimes. It was almost like I saw myself as this speck of light, or as this one point of consciousness, this soul. And it was almost like there had been a before, and there was going to be an after. And I remember that there was this deep knowing, this aha, like, I understand it. I've always known it. This, like, but I have lived many lives, and I have been everything. And after this moment, other lifetimes, other existences will also come. And in that, there is, the underlying feeling is that you are connected to everything else. So there is quite quickly a sense that you are actually not separate. So even though you're without this body and the name and the identity and everything, what happens is that you are totally filled with this sense of, this connectedness, this entanglement with everything. Yeah.
Sounds amazing. I'm wondering, I know when we come to Earth, we have this forgetfulness. If you've had other existences on other realms or other places, do they forget, or are they still experiencing that connectedness?
That's a really good question. And so in my later experiences, and because of my spiritual path, bringing me many gifts and insights and other mystical experiences, I've come to understand and to experience myself that in certain other forms, we have an awareness of the totality. We are aware of it, or we can call on it. But there are also other existences where there is a similar forgetfulness. So it depends on the dimension. I also understand, or came to understand, that it also sort of depends on the soul's contract. So every time, an aspect of your soul takes on some kind of existence, and that can be either in an energetic form or in an embodied form. There's different conditions, there's different challenges and different experiences for your soul to be had. So if it's for the soul's greatest growth to be in this forgetfulness consciousness, then it's going to be that. If we take on an embodiment in a different realm, in a different dimension, and let's say compared to 3D, that is a higher consciousness, like 5 or 6D, then there is more of the totality, because we must also understand that as we evolve, the consciousness, the awareness of the being grows. And it is simply, for humans in this current point in evolution, it's very difficult to really compute all of that data from all these different dimensions and existences and lives. We do a little bit of that when we dream, or when we can have an astral journey, or in a past life regression. So it's possible, but in a controlled way, because our brain, I always say that the brain is like the hardware, and the body is let's say, the computer that houses the hardware. And we are simply not quite there yet to fully sort of tune in, to tap into that fully multidimensional existence. Because your question really brings us to the fact that we are fully quantum beings. Humans are fully multidimensional. We have way more senses than just the 5 empirical senses, But, we're getting there. But at the moment, this is where we are. And we all agreed to go through the veil of forgetfulness. Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like we're in kindergarten at the moment. Our ego brain says, oh, we know everything, and we actually know nothing. And I do believe that we did have the consciousness before, that over the last few, I don't know how many thousand years, we've just dropped and dropped and dropped to this point that we're probably at a lower state than we used to be.
I agree. I tend to agree with that, yes. And that's another concept that I think is not highlighted enough, and that is that human evolution is not in a linear progression, and it's actually quite also incorrect for instance, the way that Darwin had, the Darwinian way of human evolution, is actually very incomplete and incorrect, because human evolution, like you already implied, comes in cycles. So there have been iterations of humans in previous civilizations that go back not only 10 or 20,000 years, but hundreds of thousands of years. And yes, we had a much higher level of consciousness. I completely agree with that. And we can have glimpses of that, and you probably do, or maybe even prolonged experiences of that, a certain lucidity, this remembrance, this re-locking into that higher consciousness that, of course, is still embedded and encoded within our DNA.
Yeah. Well, it's exciting that we're starting to wake up, at least to be out of the dark ages.
Yes.
How would you compare, because you're the first person who's speaking about being in the void and in the white light, and now I'm hearing about the electric sonic boom void. How would you compare those three? Because I was under the impression that the void was where creation starts, but maybe not.
Well, let's first of all say that, of course, everything I share is my personal perspective. Yeah. So, in my experience, and also now in my meditation practice, and so I can revisit the void. Yeah. And I feel the void as the space of infinite creation. That is not the same as the white light. In my experience, and I think in a lot of metaphysical texts, there is a slight difference, because the void is dark, and source energy, like there where you are in the oneness of all things, is light. But that is my perspective. Yeah. So again, I can only share from my own personal belief and point of perspective at this time. So the void is a very fertile, where everything, yes, where everything exists. Yeah. And it is unlimited. And yeah, it's that. So for me, they were two different spaces. And I only have a recollection of those three specific dimensional vibrations, because what are dimensions other than, different bandwidth of frequency? But there are an infinite amount of dimensions. And I have had some later on, I've had other very expansive journeys of consciousness where I have also experienced or had access to different realms. But these three were very particular to my NDE. But so there are an infinite amount of dimensions, more than we can count.
So the void would be like the womb, like the realm of possibility, like birthing something.
Yes, I would say so. That's how I see it. Yeah.
Nice. And would you say that maybe the blue realm would be like the angelic frequencies?
Now, so in my case, it turned out to be something else. So there is apparently there's various dimensions that have blue as their color frequency. Certain angelics come from a blue frequency, but they can also come from gold, from yellow, from different color refractions. For me, this blue zone was it was the dimension, it was the space where my soul was being upgraded, because I am what you call a walk-in. So in the moment where all of my consciousness and personality was taken out of the body, quite literally, under force, there is a moment where the body is completely vacant. Yeah. And we live in a universe where every void gets filled. So immediately there was an exchange, and what happened was that a higher, more mature, let's call it that, version of my soul, which was a 5-6 dimensional part of my oversoul, that was then being reseeded, brought back into my body. That is what a walk-in is. There are different walk-in scenarios. It's a metaphysical concept. It happens quite often, not so much my particular example, but there can be walk-ins where the old soul, the original soul, makes a contract pre-birth with another soul that they are going to have, that they're going to switch, but they're going to use the same body. Yeah, this happens a lot. It can also be that another soul walks in, so that there are actually two souls in one body. So there are different variations on the theme. But this particular example is what basically took place with me. And so that blue zone, that blue dimension, was the part of my higher soul. And that is where the soul was being prepared in some way to be put back into my old body. And they could have also waited for another baby, so that there was always going to be that higher aligned part of the soul that was going to go into earth realm and incarnate in a body. But there was no time. So they all of my guides, the divine, they decided that the plan was that part was going to go back into the existing body. So that's what happened. And that's what that very beautiful blue place was for.
Wow. I think walking as a term does not do it justice.
No, and it's, again, there are just terms, yeah, to describe very multidimensional, rather complex processes that take place. Yeah.
Yeah. So would you say it merged with you, or did you lose all your memories and
No,
have to?
I did not. And that's, again, very good question, because what happens in the scenario, or in the case where there is, so this was a part of my soul, a higher part of my original soul. If there is a new part, if it's a completely different soul from a different individual consciousness, then what happens many times is that upon reawakening, that new person loses all of its memory. That's like, yes, they have no access to it. That's correct. That did not happen in my case. There were changes. Your taste changed. I mean, there are changes for sure. You're a new personality, and that also takes a bit of time before, it's like you can totally, I don't know, take up that new space, fill out that body with this new part of your soul. But I still did maintain access to my original memories. Yes.
Oh. So, and that was happening within the infinity zone.
I think now, oh yes, it's been shown to me that somehow there is some connection. Yeah. So the soul was being prepared. Then I go to the blue zone. They did all this cosmic wizardry. I don't know. I think, human terms are really very limited for something that is so truly, magnificent, really, I think. Yeah.
Oh, that is spectacular. So now you landed up in the hospital by yourself. How, did you? Because I know I've heard a lot of people that have healed very fast, or they actually, the injuries that were supposedly so bad suddenly just got better, or they went through months of pain and suffering and still are suffering.
Yes, I think maybe it was a little bit of both, in the sense that I had an awful lot of damage. I basically broke every bone in my body from here down. So I broke my spine, I broke my back, I broke my pelvic bone, I shattered my whole left leg. I had lots of damage on internal organs, etc., etc. That needed two big operations, reconstructive surgery, and I was put in a plaster corset for 4.5 months. So I was in plaster from up here, from my chest down to my knees. So that was also, that part of the healing journey was very profound, to be not only sort of, locked to a bed, but into one position, because you're just on your back, just looking up at the ceiling for all these months. And the plaster really starts itching also quite quickly. So, but yes, in the aftermath of the physical healing, yes, it was also a very profound journey, having experienced very, very severe pain and a lot of uncertainties, because they did not really know, my doctors in the hospital, the orthopedic surgeons. They did not know whether I was ever going to be able to walk again, and if I could walk normally without pain, if there was going to be any anomalies or deformations. I also had extensive damage around my womb. So I was 28 when that happened, and they said that they could give no guarantees if I was ever able to have children, whether I could conceive, like full term, like if I could carry a pregnancy for 9 months. And so, that was a lot also on a psychological, emotional level that you're taking in. It was it was very complex, everything. Yeah.
And it's quite a paradox compared to where you just were.
Yeah.
To be, out in this expansiveness, to being literally a prisoner inside your own body.
Back in the broken body. Yeah, I wrote a poem about it, and that's a line from the poem, Back in the Broken Body. Yeah, it was that. And, I think it's also probably important to realize that many people who go through experiences like this, when they come back from this death threshold, and they have a lot of physical damage, that many of us, including myself, I was really depressed, because I had been, just like you said, I had been in this most glorious place, in this oneness, in this source energy, and then back in a body that was so broken and in so much pain, with all these uncertainties. Yeah, you are very depressed. So there was many weeks where there was a psychiatrist, at your bed. The hospitals, they, at least in Holland, they provided that. So to also give you support in that, because you really have to sort of really put all those pieces back together. And because I did not have a miraculous healing in that sense. I know there's the story, for instance, of Anita Morjani and some others, and I find those absolutely fascinating and beautiful, and I absolutely know that exists. But that was not the case in my story. And I know now also that there were lessons to be learned for me, like, how do you find the strength to go from that, to be really in the prime of your life as a 28-year-old with a fantastic boyfriend, and doing what you love, studying art, and being so, with both legs and your whole body and existence full in life. And from one moment to the next, everything changes. So that took many months, and I should say probably years, before I had really come to a place where I could really sort of integrate all of that and put that in a place, and not also feel very sad about it. And, it took me many years to even talk about it without bursting out crying, because it was really all very, very profound. So that there was, a huge expansion in that. How do people find the courage and to say every day, I'm just going to take day by day, and I take breath by breath, and I cannot look 3 months ahead or a year ahead. It's like you can only go from breath to breath, and then from hour to hour and day to day. And that in and of itself already is a very deep experience, that again sort of stretches your consciousness, and it's all part of being alive, what it is to be human. Yeah.
What were you thinking at the time of that recovery? I mean, everyone's got like some leading thought in their mind. What were you thinking? Because why would they send you back? That's what I would be thinking.
Yes, and it really also that let's say the purpose that I found out later, that didn't come right away. It wasn't like, okay, you're back in the body, and by the time you're out of intensive care and into a more relatively normal hospital room, it's not like da 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 da, everything is clear and like your purpose. It's like, oh, okay, welcome back. Well, here's your purpose. You're going to help people, and you're going to talk about your experience, and you're going to help people through the ascension process, and you're going to be a kind of healer. No, it's not really like that. That comes in stages. Yeah, so my thoughts were very much like, yes, why did I survive that? And first, of course, in the early stages, you also, once you sort of learn how to stabilize your whole being in incredible physical pain, what you feel is gratitude. I started to, every morning when I would awake in my plaster corset, and before I would fall asleep, I would like, wow, I made it through another day. And I would awake, and there was this incredible new sense of gratitude that maybe I hadn't had, before my accident. Maybe not in that sense, in that sort of intensity. So first it was just grateful to be alive, gratitude. And that stayed with me for a long time. I started to also have a gratitude journal later. But then, yes, of course, it was, so what is my purpose now? Now I'm here. And at first I really thought, I used my art and my art projects, my photography and my video art to speak about my experiences. I had an awareness that it was important, that was part of that sort of the second chance. This like, well, you're back, you survived. I understood that I had to speak about it, because many people, let's say, there is a predominant, in the collective, there is a predominant belief that death is very painful and that death is very scary. Most people are afraid of death. And of course, this is very much emphasized, by cultural, social, religious concepts, yeah? And thousands of years of indoctrination that, death is the end, and all these other constructs of heaven and hell and all of that. And to be really honest, I already struggled a bit with that when I was even a young child. I always found that really like, wow, so we only have one life, and if we don't have a good life, then maybe, you go to hell. And I found that really hard to believe, to accept, and also, so that makes no sense to me. And so it was also beautiful to then experience that actually what I had already sort of assumed or sort of felt then actually came true. So I knew it was important to share my story about crossing over into this afterlife, to share with people that it is not scary, that there's nothing to be afraid of. And actually, that death is not real. Death does not exist. There is no death. It's just a transition from one vibration to another, quite literally. It is an energetic transition from this form, from this density into something, much lighter, much more subtle, much higher in frequency, much more expansive. So that became for many years, my main purpose was, okay, I need to share that message, and I need to speak about this metaphysical space, all these cosmic experiences, because people need to know about this. Yeah, so that's how it went first.
Yeah, I think speaking about living on this earth is more painful.
Mm.
um, when you spoke about it, did people think you were crazy? Or are there certain people that hear you, and then of course there will be certain that don't?
Yes, this I think that is quite a correct assessment. I must admit that within my own family and my own circle of friends, people never thought I was crazy. They believed what had happened to me, and they also saw how much it had impacted me and changed and expanded me. Even though they themselves, there was no one in my sort of immediate environment, or circle that had anything close to what I had experienced. So it was more like they listened, they were very interested and fascinated, but it wasn't like there was a lot of dialogue. There were questions that I, just like now, that I sort of answered to the best of my capabilities and level of understanding, which has grown exponentially over the years. But I felt quite alone in my experience, and then so quite quickly started reading, obviously, spiritual books and books on metaphysics, Tibetan Book of the Dying, that gave it a context, because really no one was able to actually put it in any kind of context. I had to do that myself. I also remember reading many books of Raymond Moody, and who wrote many books on astral journeys and afterlife experiences, and that really helped. Remember, this was in the 90s of the last century. There was no internet. It wasn't like you could just log on, go to YouTube or whatever platform, and have an infinite amount of information on all of those kind of spiritual subjects. I had to order books, and most of the books on NDEs and afterlife were written in English. So I ordered lots of books, from the American bookstop and library in Holland, and that really helped me to frame, my experience. I don't know if that's so. Did they think I was crazy? No. When I started to go more public, and when I made my first video on YouTube where I came out with my story, there were some people leave comments, and some people are very religious, they're very orthodox, or they're very closed within their small enclosure of their religion or culture, and yes, they leave very unfriendly comments, and some people will say, oh, you are of the devil, or this is the work of the devil, and there is no afterlife, and I don't know. So yeah, it's a bit polarized, but
Just find it fascinating that they could say that when you clearly had left your body. You'd broken every bone in your body. So where
yeah.
did you go then?
Yeah, but for them, it's still just my story. And of course, there are thousands of NDE stories now. And they would say, because of course, I've also watched many other or read books about other people's NDEs. So, I'm quite well versed with, all of the different varieties. And of course, what they would say is, well, it's just your story. Some people would maybe think, well, you made it up, or whatever, like maybe like you're crazy or something. I think there's a lot of fear. people, they also think of also concepts like, oh, past lives. Oh my gosh, I have been other things. I've lived in other places and in other times. And, like there's so much fear within the human, the wider human consciousness and sphere. Yeah, like we are full of fear. And if one of my messages, one of the things I would like to have an impact in is to people, there's nothing to be afraid of. It's you are here, because you are meant to be, and you're exactly where you are. And we're all gonna go on. Your essence, your soul, that what makes you you, is eternal. Yeah, that can't die. It's only the body that dies. It's you drop the body, you drop the physical form. That's all. And actually, having facilitated, so many hundreds, over probably, over 1,000, quantum regressions, past life regressions, and having taken so many people through death experiences, I can honestly say that in most cases, the death experience is so serene. It is a very beautiful, soft, serene experience where the soul leaves the body and looks back and understands and is grateful and goes back to this, through this much wider, universal field of consciousness, which is so liberating. We don't understand how small, how, limited everything is. I've often used the analogy of a video game, or nowadays we can say a virtual reality game. You know, our soul just animates this body. We're a character in the virtual reality game, and we come here and we play that game to the best of our abilities, have lots of experiences, good and bad and everything in between, and we do the best we can. And then at some point, that character in that virtual reality game, it dies. Either we get shot, there are these very aggressive, I don't know, violent games, or, we died peacefully. It doesn't matter. Whatever scenario is followed in that virtual reality game. And then that character dies. But you're the one, the moment that character dies, you understand that actually your consciousness is the one that animates that character. You get outside of the video game. You go outside, the virtual reality, and then everything falls in its place. So you don't die. It's just that character, that little individual speck of consciousness with a name and a body and an identity, that dies. And that's also good.
It's like the movie Avatar.
Yes.
And I'm sure, who was the director again? I'm sure he must have had a near-death
James
experience.
Cameron.
Oh, James Cameron. He must have known more, because there are so many similarities in that movie that he's portrayed.
I believe the same. I think he is a very wise man, and he must have way more insights and experiences than he shares in the, let's say, in the public arena. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So now, how is your life different, besides the fact that it's vastly different?
Well, it's different in many ways, obviously, but what is the most beautiful, I think, aspect that has crystallized is that I'm here to live my purpose, and I do this, with all of my heart. And my purpose is sharing those stories, also guiding other starseeds, souls that come from different planets, different galaxies, through this, through this awakening, through this experience that is called Earth, and being human in a body, and yes, guiding, the collective through this incredibly exciting ascension process, this shift in consciousness. And that is an amazing purpose, because that is incredibly fulfilling. And I think that would be, I think everyone who lives his purpose, lives a fulfilled life. So in that sense, very different.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Did you get any gifts? Like, are you able to pick up on people's energy or their thoughts even? I know some people have been able to hear thoughts. Do you have that as well?
Yes, yes. That came a little later, but of course that was all, let's say, part of the package that came with the walk-in higher soul aspect scenario. Yes, yes. During my early 40s, during my, I call it my spiritual blossoming. Yes, all of my psychic gifts came online, and it came sort of in a flash. I had an incredibly profound mystical experience, actually, a series of mystical experiences that lasted almost 1 year. And in that time frame, during those months, in the beginning, like sort of the first thing that happened was all of my psychic abilities sort of came online. So I could see energies, I was psychic, so I could receive downloads, messages from higher consciousness, from angels. I was communicating to my own spirit team. I could communicate to other people's spirit teams. It was quite overwhelming. And also clairaudient, clairsentient. I can see people's auric fields. And please let me add to that that I am not special in that sense. We can all see those things because we all have those latent psychic abilities because they come with the original human, template, like you said. So we all had those. They've just been sort of dialed down. Yeah. So it's a sort of an activation of something that, is latent within all of us. And it just sort of got activated in the moment. And I sort of had to, make sense of it all. And now it forms part of, all the services that my spiritual services that I offer to people, that I can help people with. And also one of the most beautiful things that I do is help people channel. So anyone can be a channeler of divine source energy, because we all have that innate capacity. And so that's another beautiful thing that came as a result of my death experience ultimately.
I heard that there was a lady, I don't know if it was like the 1920s, that could see colors in the aura. And up until that time, no one could. But as soon as they'd been around her, they suddenly could also see colors. So I would assume that the more people come online and the more they're opening to their abilities, the more people will be able to. It's almost like it helps to lift other people's consciousness up just by being around them. Is that true, do you think?
Yes, I think that's very true. You can see that already when, so they know they've done these experiments when like 1,000 monks meditate together and they meditate intentionally on something. Yeah, it manifests, or, it comes into being, or it's something that they can measure. Yeah, the expansion. And this is similar with what you describe. So if that woman was able to perceive the different colors in the auric field, which many people can nowadays, by the way, she obviously had a more subtle field. Yeah, so she emanated, let's say, maybe stronger energy, stronger frequency. And when people sit in that field, I think it's similar when you go to a guru, when people go to India or to someone who is fully self-realized. Yeah, so a holy man or a sadhu or a guru. They have a field, they have a presence. And from being in that presence, yes, your own field can expand. So I see it in a similar way. So that woman had a more expanded field. And in that way it was possible for her to impact other people's fields. And by the way, when you come together, you always create a stronger field. So that's why for instance, I do a lot of group sessions, because the impact of all the energetic upgrades that we do, and the sort of the alchemy that happens during those sessions, it's exponentially amplified. So doing things in a group is good.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Alexandra, where can people get hold of you if they want to connect or have a regression or learn how to channel?
Yes, thank you. I have a YouTube channel, I have a website, I am on Instagram, Facebook. So throughout most of the social media, you can find me. Maybe I can leave you the links. So you can either email me or contact me through YouTube or Instagram. And then, yes, people can let me know what kind of experience or session they would like to have, and we can take it from there. I'd be delighted to be their guide.
Well, I'll post those links below, and I'm sure that they will reach out, because there's nothing to me more fascinating than finding out where you actually really come from, and feeling that it's that yearning to be back home again. Before we go, do you have a message for our viewers?
Well, yes, my message would be that the year 2025 and 2026 are really the end of a cycle. And these are the years that are going to bring profound changes on every level of our reality and our society. And we already see some of that because we are living in very volatile times. Now, hand in hand with that goes, you can say that if you want to work on yourself, if you want to have a better life, if you want to break your patterns, if you want to really get onto this whole ascension journey, yeah, to go on a timeline, to go to a new earth, a better earth, where there is no suffering, where there is no disease, where there is no war, then I would say this is the time to do it, because things are going to accelerate incredibly. And everyone that is now dedicating and intentionally on such a journey is making tremendous impact and, stepping forward, because there are energies all around us, and also through solar flares from our sun and, many other plasmic waves that are actually helping us to make those shifts. So if you're sitting on the fence, if there's any of your listeners or your audience that has been sort of sitting on the fence, like, maybe I should do some healing, maybe I would like to learn to be a channel, or maybe I should learn about my cosmic origin, or maybe I need physical healing also, yeah? There is no better moment than now, because in the course of next year, by the time of June next year, or maybe a little bit later, we're going to wake up as a collective to a very different world with very different energies. This is not a fear mongering. This is just me sharing, coming from a very good place to say, we are in this journey together. If you want to, join the party, the ascension journey to New Earth, now is the time to do it.
Exciting times. I think, like someone said, I mean, we've been through a lot already, and it's not really that it might get harder. It's just that it's getting so much. It's like
Yes.
when you give birth, those labor pains come closer and closer together. And now it's almost like that. It's the quickening.
Very true. That's absolutely what I'm observing, and also what my channel, my divine messages have been all about. And it's going to keep, becoming increasingly intense. Yes.
So I had this analogy once that if you took a spinning top and you spin it, it maintains its balance. But if you take a piece out of it, it'll wobble and fall over. And what people do in times of uncertainty, if they're not whole, they're going to wobble and they're looking for external validation or security. So it's rather focusing on going inward and not going outward to heal. So hence, I just love the fact that you do that work, that you're able to help them with regression and remember who they are.
Very well said. Yes, the journey is inward, not outward. It's also actually very good at many times to unplug from the external movie, as I call it. It's just a movie. It will play out. And the more you unplug and the more you plug in, you turn inward to yourself, to your innate. Yeah, the better it gets. Yeah, very true.
Yeah, it's a lot. And I thank you so much. That was just absolutely amazing to hear your story.